Welcome to our series in the Watchtower versus the Bible, where we compare the fallible, imperfect, ever-changing and uninspired teachings of the governing body with those of the infallible, perfect, unchanging, inspired teachings of the Bible. Please subscribe to be kept updated on new videos and feel free to comment below. In this episode, we're going to look at the Watchtower's idea that Jesus didn't die on a cross, but instead on a simple vertical torture stake. We're also going to look at whether they are guilty of lying and telling half-truths when presenting their evidence. Interestingly, both these images are from Watchtower publications showing how Jesus died. The Watchtower discusses this point in many articles, but each generally covers the same points. That the Greek word stauros, usually translated as cross, means stake. Secondly, that the cross is a pagan symbol. Thirdly, crucifixion has historically been done on a stake, not on a cross. And lastly, that there is no biblical evidence that even suggests Jesus died on a cross. We're going to look at the evidence and let you judge the outcome. Firstly though, we need to define what is meant by a lie. Gerrit Losch, governing body member, defines one as a false statement deliberately presented as being true. The book Insight on the Scriptures defines it as generally involving saying something false to a person who is entitled to know the truth and doing so with intent to deceive or to injure him or another person. The caveat about persons being entitled to know is a Watchtower addition. They also agree that Satan is the originator of lying. Gerrit Losch has a lot to say about telling the truth in a November 2016 Watchtower video entitled Be a Champion of the Truth. Here we can watch some of the selected highlights.
A German proverb says, "Who lies once is not believed even if he says the truth." But there's also something that is called a half-truth. So we need to speak openly and honestly with each other, not withholding bits of information that could change the perception in the listener or mislead him. Since Jehovah hates liars, we should avoid all lies, not just big or malicious lies.
Keep what he has said in mind when reviewing the evidence. Since the introduction of the internet, it has become a lot easier to check up on the references the Watchtower quotes in its articles. In this episode, we won't be presenting exhaustive references, but simply to try to add some balance into the Watchtower's somewhat biased reporting of the facts, and also to see if it's guilty of telling half-truths, or even downright lies. The Watchtower claims that the Greek word often translated as cross actually simply means a vertical stake or post. They correctly quote Vine's expository dictionary when it says, primarily an upright pole or stake. But the meaning of the word changed at some point, and there was a lot of evidence to support the idea that it changed before Christ was crucified. Many other lexicons define stauros as meaning cross, such as Thayer's Greek English Lexicon, Strong's Concise Dictionary, the Analytical Greek Lexicon by H. Moulton, and the Liddell and Scott Greek English Lexicon. Only quoting Vine is telling a half-truth. The Watchtower also refers to another Greek word which is sometimes used when talking of the crucifixion instrument. The word is xylon, which appears in such places as Galatians 3 verse 13, quoting from Deuteronomy 21 verse 23. The word is often translated as tree, which is a correct use of the word. The Watchtower claims that it never means cross and translates it as stake or torture stake. In sport they quote a critical lexicon and concordance to the English and Greek New Testament, but fail to write the whole quote, avoiding the part where xylon can mean anything made from wood, including the cross. This is certainly a very blatant half-truth. Again, other lexicons refer to the word's use as to anything made from wood or cross, such as Thayer's Greek English Lexicon, Strong's Concordance, the Analytical Greek Lexicon, Liddell and Scott Greek English Lexicon, and even Vine's. They defend a translation of the word as torture stake by referring to the complete Jewish Bible, but there it just uses stake. Nowhere is either stauros or xylon ever defined as torture stake. That is an unnecessary addition by the governing body. The Watchtower claims that the cross is a pre-Christian symbol, and without a doubt the symbol of a cross existed long before Christ in pagan cultures and religions. However, when considering the piñata, the Awake of September 2003 disregards its pagan origins and tells us that how it is viewed today is what matters. Should they not apply this principle to the cross? If you were to ask virtually anybody in the world what the cross symbolises today, they would no doubt say Christianity. Quoting Exodus 20 verses 4 and 5, they say that the symbol of the cross breaks Jehovah's command not to make an image. However, this clearly is in reference to worshipping such an image and not simply making one. The Watchtower is surely just as guilty of this with its jw.org image. Additionally, the goddess Artemis of the Ephesians, mentioned in Acts 19, is depicted with the Watchtower as her symbol. Does this mean the Watchtower should abandon their symbol too? Moving on to their claim that historically Roman crucifixion used a stake, not a cross, the appendix to their 1969 Kingdom Interlinear translation refers to a book by Justus Lipsius and prints a picture from that book they claim shows how Jesus died, the crux simplex. However, this is not the cross that Justus claims that Jesus died on. That appears a few pages further on, the crux emissa, so that is at least a half-truth, if not a downright lie. Later Watchtower articles, such as the August 1987 and April 2006 Awakes, make similar claims, and again they avoid mentioning that the author they quote denies that version is what Jesus died on. More half-truths. John Granger Cook, in his book Crucifixion in the Mediterranean World, talks of the Roman patibula, a further timber piece which was then added to the stake to make the cross. Also, a relatively recent discovery is of a piece of Roman graffiti depicting someone being crucified on a cross. The inscription with the graffiti is translated as Alexamenos worships his god, mocking poor Alexamenos, who appears to have been a Christian. Thus there are secular historical sources that show a cross was used in executions. Other historical sources include Justin Martyr, born about 100 AD, the Epistle of Barnabas, probably not the Barnabas of the Bible though, dated before 135 AD and maybe much earlier, and Irenaeus of Lyon, born early in the 2nd century. Let's see what they had to say. The lamb which was commanded to be wholly roasted was a symbol of the suffering of the cross which Christ would undergo. For the lamb which is roasted and dressed up in the form of the cross. For one spit is transfixed right through from the lower parts up to the head, and one across the back to which are attached the legs of the lamb. Here thou hast Jesus, and because the cross in the T was to have grace, he saith also 300th, so he revealeth Jesus in the 2 letters, and in the remaining one, the cross. The very form of the cross, too, has 5 extremities, 2 in length, 2 in breadth, and 1 in the middle, on which the last the person rests, who is fixed by the nails. So, there is significant historical support for the cross as the instrument of Jesus' crucifixion, which should not be discounted. What about the biblical evidence for the cross that the Watchtower says doesn't exist? Admittedly, nowhere in the Bible is the cross explicitly described, but there is still evidence. John 5 verse 25 talks of the marks of nails, plural, in Jesus' hands. Watchtower illustrations always show just one nail going through both hands. If nailed to a cross, there will be at least 2 nails used. A recent response from the Watchtower states that this is just artistic license, but why draw something that they know is wrong? Matthew 27 verse 37 talks of the sign being posted above his head. Surely this should have read above his hands, as in their picture. Then, in their book, What Does the Bible Really Teach?, they claim that Galatians 3 verse 13 gives convincing proof of their stake theory by referring to the xylon as stake. But we've already seen that xylon can mean anything made from wood, so it is far from convincing proof, so that is a lie. Clearly, there is some evidence in the Bible, so again, another lie. There is a vast amount of information available on the internet about this subject, and I've only included a very small part of the whole. But to summarise the Watchtower's evidence, the Greek word styros did originally mean a post or a stake, but its meaning changed at some time to include a cross. The Greek word xylon also means anything made from wood, which would not preclude its use in describing the cross. The cross certainly used to be a pagan symbol, but it hasn't been for hundreds of years and definitely symbolises Christianity today. The Watchtower needs to review its own use of pagan symbols too. Historically, there is significant evidence to support the use of the cross by the Romans, both in secular and Christian writings. But the jury is out, as there are arguments and evidence on both sides. There is some biblical evidence to support the idea of a cross, even though there is nothing conclusive and no clear proof either way. What can we conclude from all this? The statement in the Watchtower's book Reasoning that the weight of evidence is against the cross is only true if you only consider the evidence the Watchtower offers you. Otherwise, it's a lie. Let's remind ourselves what Gerrit Losch says about a liar.
A German proverb says, "Who lies once is not believed even if he says the truth."
By Gerrit Losch's reckoning, because the governing body is guilty of telling at least one lie, we should not believe it from now on. But, in truth, it does not matter whether Jesus died for us with his hands above his head or stretched out to the sides. What is important is that he did die for us. He died so that we could have our sins forgiven, and so he could rescue us to live with him forever. This offer of rescue, of forgiveness for our sins, is offered to whoever puts their belief in him. It is not limited to just a few. This is the message, the gospel message, that we ought to concentrate on when talking with Jehovah's Witnesses. Having seen all the evidence, who will you believe? The Watchtower or the Bible? Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. Please like and subscribe below to be updated with new content, and feel free to comment as well.